way. I feel love, but I don't feel that way. Then she said, hey, I'm more, but she put her hand around my waist. I told her no, she cried, hey, I'm more, told her run away. But let me go, I saw him to cry. Without asking why, I said, hey, I'm more. Somebody tell me what she said. Te amo, she says to me. I hear the pain in her voice. Then we danced underneath the candelabra. She takes the lead. That's when I saw it in her eyes. It's over. Then she said, te amo. Then she put her hand around my waist. I told her no, she cried, te amo. I told her run away. But let me go, I saw her to cry. Without asking why, I said, te amo. Somebody tell me what she said. Don't it mean I love you? Think it means I love you. Don't it mean I love you? Think it means I love you. Don't it mean I love you? Te amo, she can't breathe. I hold her hand, I got no choice. Take me out on the beach, dance in the water. I thought I'd leave. She begged me, nothing. So bad, she said, te amo. Then she put her hand around my waist. I told her no, she cried, te amo. Told her run away. But let me go, I saw him to cry. Without asking why, I said, te amo. Somebody tell me what she said. Don't it mean I love you? Think it means I love you. Don't it mean I love you? Think it means I love you.
Don't know if you got a girl. Don't mean no disrespect, but thoughts of you rule my world. I even dream of you, I swear. Visions of you and I. Gonna walk right up to you and walk right up to you. Gonna walk right up to you and walk right up to you. Gonna walk right up to you and walk right up to you. Gonna walk right up to you and walk right up to you. Don't know if you got a girl. Don't mean no disrespect, but thoughts of you rule my world. I even dream of you, I swear. Visions of you and I. Gonna walk right up to you and walk right up to you. Gonna walk right up to you and walk right up to you. Walk right up to you. Walk right up to you and walk right up to you. Walk right up to you and walk right up to you. Walk right up to you and walk right up to you. Walk right up to you and
Khalifa Cyrus.
gonna walk right up to Tell me what you came for. And I need you to know, you to know, you to know, you to know, you to know. Tell me what you came for. And I need you to know, you to know. Tell me what you
Welcome one and all to the NUEL's Magic the Gathering Arena Campus Battle, week number 7. My name is Peter Hartnell, joined by Piers Segal today, and this is the end of inaugural season of Magic the Gathering here at the NUEL. It's been a long road for the first ever university level Magic the Gathering tournament in Europe, and after this season, we headed toward the spring season and eventually the spring live finals.
That's right. We're going to be taking a 10-week break, during which time the teams will be looking very closely at what decks they want to play. We'll have a whole new set available to them by then for the spring playoff season starting 12th of February. That's going to be back on Wednesdays. We're going to have 4 weeks of double elimination playoffs leading into the spring live finals for the tournament's 40k prize pool. To get there, though, you're still going to have to finish strong in the current 7-week playoffs. The end of the winter season is today with the final 2 rounds. That's going to determine where you enter into that top 32 if you make the cutoff at all. So your results today are going to be very, very important going forwards. We have lots of teams at 5 points. They're going to be looking to get to that magical 6 points that guarantees them entry to the top 32. But even at the top, people are contesting to try and get that high seed that's going to help them in the competition going forwards.
So guys, we're going to have those 2 best of 3 matches today, separated by a short 15-minute break. But Piers, can you kind of recap for us in a little bit more detail how we actually got to this point in week 7?
So we've had our teams of 3 students apiece from universities across the United Kingdom battling their way through 6 weeks of Swiss competition, finally finishing up the 7th tonight, trying to get that top 32 cutoff point. They've been playing an enormous variety of decks to get there because we've been playing in the Team Unified Standard format. That requires a little bit of restrictions on deck building. We've also had a couple of different shake-ups to the metagame with certain cards coming in and out of the Galaxy in that time.
Yes, of course, the big one is going to be Oko, Once Upon a Time and Veil of Summer, which the teams have had to adapt to in the last few weeks. But just a little bit of explanation for any of you guys who are coming to the stream for the first time. The Team Unified Standard means that across the whole team, only one player can play a particular card. Up to 4 copies of that card, but only one player. So that means that, you're forced to find at least 2 decks for your 3 that can be tournament winning.
That's absolutely right. And the reason we say you need to have at least 2 very strong decks, and a lot of the teams are focused on 2 primary decks and sort of 1 fill-in deck, if you want to think about it that way, is that they're going to be paired up into 3 best of 3 games against their opposing team for each round. So they only need to get 2 wins across those 3 matches to claim the point for the entire round.
Yeah, so all right, so it's almost time for us to get into our first match of the day. We've got the UAE Wizards against the second pick Bears. Piers, can you tell us a little bit about what the teams are going to be bringing out for us this evening?
Okay, so starting off with UEA Wizards, they're currently sitting pretty well in the leaderboard at 17th with 6 points. That means they're very likely to make it through to the next stage, but they're just trying to compete to have a high seed. They're actually a little bit of an interesting team. They're actually the Take 5 Mental Health Society at University of East Anglia, unlike a lot of the teams we're seeing are just representing their game society. And the deck they're bringing into play today is going to be Gruul Aggro. So this is a red-green deck using sort of powerful aggressive creatures like Bone Crusher Giant, which is a 4/3 for 3. Lovestruck Beast is a 5/5 for 3 to try and overrun the creatures on the other side of the board. But they're also now tapping into a powerful end-game value engine in the Great Henge. This is a very powerful but expensive artifact that once you get it down, lets you draw a card every time you play another creature and just chain off into a huge powerful board state. Going across to second pick Bear, these guys are actually bringing a deck that I don't think we've featured on stream yet, but is definitely a potentially exciting one. This is going to be the 3-color Knights deck, so it's red, white, and black, commonly referred to as Mardu. That's going to be tapping into all of the powerful synergies between the Knights cards. So their creatures all have the same creature type, and then some of them reward you for that. So they have cards like Inspiring Veteran, that just gives a static power boost to all Knights that they control. And then they've also got things like Icon of Ancestry, which rewards you for having lots of creatures of the same type by allowing you to draw additional copies of them. So both decks playing a very creature-based strategy, both playing powerful late-game draw engines that will enable them to gain value. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these two pair off.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm particularly excited to see Embercleave taking the field. That's something that's been lurking in the background for a long time. This artifact that you're able to bring down as a flash artifact, this giant sword you can attach to anything, giving it double strike, giving it trample. Whenever you're playing against a deck, especially a deck like this, you've always got to have it in the back of your mind. Am I just about to lose horribly? Take 8 life at a time.
You certainly do, and I think anybody who's played against an Embercleave and been on the wrong end of it learns the lesson pretty quickly that you've got to respect the burst power of this equipment. It's a equipment, so normally you can just cast it at sorcery speed and equip it, but it actually has this ability where it can be cast mid-combat and immediately equipped to a creature. So you can throw it onto a creature that's unblocked, or even one that has been blocked because it also grants trample. Take advantage of that double strike, doubling the damage output from that creature for the turn, and just often just winning on the spot. So maybe that will be the big sort of play for second pick Bear that's going to put them over the edge of UEA Wizards.
And so if we look across again, you mentioned that we're seeing adventures. We've been seeing a lot of adventures over the course of the tournament. It's proven to be a very potent deck. How do you feel like it matches up into second pick Bear's Mardu?
Well, of course, the big point about adventures is you get to play Edgewall Innkeeper. This is a 1/1 for a single mana that will draw you a card every time you play an adventure creature. That can just generate enormous value incredibly quickly. Even in terms of things like hitting enough land, if you get to play a land every single turn, you can just get out ahead of your opponent and get a big speed advantage against them. So I think that's going to be the critical thing for UEA Wizards, is trying to find those early. We might see a lot of mulligans to get those into play quickly.
Yeah, and you mentioned as well for the Wizards, for Rogue Refiner, the player who's going to be bringing us in, that Great Henge artifact. Why didn't we, what does you mentioned before, sorry, that it allows you to draw cards and, generate mana as well. But why weren't we seeing this very expensive artifact seeing play before?
Well, as you say, it's a wildly powerful artifact. We've not even covered everything it does yet, but it does cost a lot of mana to get into play. It's a big investment, and previously was easily dealt with by Oko. Oko able to +1 to turn any artifact into just a sort of valueless 3/3 elk. So that squeezed cards like Great Hens out of the format, made them unplayable. Now that easy answer isn't there. You're able to get it into play, have it stick around for a few turns, and actually get that return on your investment.
I mean, because we've got a couple of, of sort of discount effects. We didn't even mention with the Embercleave that if you get, multiple creatures that are attacking, you get to bring it in even faster. I'm just having a quick look through the Rogue Refiner's deck. It looks like they don't have anything massive, because with the Great Henge, of course, you get the discount for the creature with the greatest power on the field when you're trying to play it.
That's absolutely right. I mean, I don't think they're looking to have one creature fulfill that requirement. What they're looking to do is get that critical mass of getting a Love Struck Beast and a Bone Crusher Giant and sort of adding it up as a combined total.
All right, guys, I do believe we'll be having that first game up for you guys soon. As you said before, these two teams are just about, in the position where they want to be as far as getting into that top three and that access to £40,000 prize pool. But, if anything could happen here, the team that loses here, they go on to lose again off stream, as we'll be heading on to featuring at Edinburgh a little later on. There's still a possibility that somehow they might be able to get snuck out of that top 32. And, it's still only the beginning of the journey for these guys.
Absolutely, there's everything to play for. Getting through to that top 32, very critical, guarantees you access to the next stage of the event. And of course, as we said before, that's not the whole story. Even once you're through, how well you finish in this part of the tournament is going to determine your seeding for the next stage. That's going to make it very much more difficult or easier for you to actually find your way through to the finals. Of course, if you're a low seed, you're likely to be paired up against very high seed opponents who are presumably going to be tough battles. They're going to try and keep you out of getting to the later rounds, as it is a double elimination tournament. Whereas if you're a high seed, hopefully you won't be paired up against any other high seeds early on. You've got a good chance of getting into the late stages. So a lot to play for here still.
Yeah, it's very much the opposite of what's been going on in the regular season, in which you spend most of your weeks matched up against people with a very similar record. That does allow us to get to this point where, theoretically at least, we end up with the very, very best teams against each other in the grand final. But there's still the possibility of seeing one of our lower seeded teams, come out and make a big surprise and make that miracle run all the way to the finals.
Absolutely true. As you say, there may very well be these matchups where we have high-seeded teams that performed well in the early stages against lower-seeded teams that didn't perhaps do as well as they hoped. But we could easily see a David and Goliath situation where, having made it through to the next season, keeping in mind that there will be a new set available, the metagame will have shifted, we might find that plays to the strengths of some of the teams who didn't do as well in the first section of the event, and we may find a complete reversal and some upsets happening.
Yeah, very much looking forward to that. I mean, this has been something the teams have had to adapt to. As you mentioned before, the team unified format, something you're not going to find, when you're just playing by yourself on the queue. But yeah, to get to adapt to the new ban lists as well. I feel like this has been a real good test for our teams, and certainly for Edinburgh Eldrazi, who we're going to be seeing a little bit later on. One of our top teams, they've managed to maintain their performance for quite a long way through the tournament so far.
That's absolutely right. So hopefully we'll be seeing a continuation of that performance in the near future. And certainly we're going to be looking forward to some exciting Magic today as soon as games get started for us. I'm just going to see if we can double check how soon that's going to be.
Sorry about this, guys. Piers, do you want to try and jump on that one, or do you want me to?
I'm right.
Sorry about this, guys. So what we have to do is a lot of magic behind the scenes to make sure that you guys can see the games. As you'll be aware, or perhaps you wouldn't be aware, with Magic the Gathering Arena, there's not a built-in spectator card, so we have to work some magic behind the scenes to make sure it all happens. Let's see if it's
We
Is it
are
up?
now in our first game. Rogue Refiners
Aha!
on turn 2, passing over to Neon Assassin. Rogue Refiners did find that Edgewall Innkeeper turn 1. As we said, it's going to be pretty critical for powering out their deck. Let's see if Neon Assassin has an answer to it.
All right, there we go. Worthy Knight coming down. So that's going to be able to pump out 1/1s and help flood the board. Note those 1/1s won't be knights in themselves, just little human tokens, but still a decent amount of board presence for an assassin.
Very well worth keeping in mind, but of course, as you say, just getting additional creatures for free is so, looking at Rogue Refiners, we're seeing a huge, powerful player, Vivian Arcbow Ranger, coming down. That's immediately going to minus to kill, I imagine, the Worthy Knight on the Assassin side of the board and shut down that token generation for him.
Wow, yeah, that's a big hit to take that early on. The Worthy Knight, clearing out the board does mean there's nothing to stop that Vivian from being taken out in return, though.
Absolutely. So you can actually just attack into it with your Venerable Knight, and then Rogue Refiners has to decide, do I let my Vivian Arcbow Ranger die, or do I block with my Edgewall Innkeeper and lose that instead? Either one is a pretty big loss to you. I think Rogue Refiners realizes this, but just thought the value of getting that Worthy Knight off the board was worth trading one of these cards for it. Looks like he's opting to lose his Innkeeper here, which is interesting as he's not managed to get any card advantage from it yet.
Yeah, that's a big hit to miss out on, especially with the Lovestruck Beast waiting in hand as a way to pop off that extra card's worth of value. Apparently wants to keep that Vivian Arcbow Ranger out very, very much.
Well, of course, any Planeswalker left around undisturbed for too long is just going to generate huge amounts of value. You can see it's distributing +1/+1 counters to Rogue Refiner's side of the board, making it bigger and scarier. Unfortunately, Nin Assassin not able to take advantage of Innkeeper being taken out. Played their own card advantage card, the Acclaimed Contender, 3/3 for 3, that looks through the top of your deck to find a knight or a couple of other card types. Didn't hit anything, so a little bit disappointing for an Assassin there. Hopefully they can find something to make up for it this turn, though.
Yeah, Rogue Refiners, it will be able to keep out for the time being. I think that Lovestruck Beast is going to do a fantastic job of just getting it in for, or just, sorry, for just getting in the way of so much. We know, of course, that Knight of the Ebon Legion is going to be able to give themselves Death Touch, but oh, what's this? The Questing Beast. Now, that's not a bad way to get some real serious board presence.
Absolutely. It has some very relevant abilities here as well. It can't be blocked by creatures with 2 or less power, so that Knight of the Ebon Legion not able to get in front of it to double block the Acclaimed Contender, although with the Vivian activation, Questing Beast now out of the range of that anyway, so we'll get in for 5 damage here now. Of course, the Knight of the Ebon Legion has an ability for 3 mana where it can get +2/+2 until end of turn and Death Touch, so an Assassin can choose to activate that to block the beast. Choosing instead, though, to spend that mana to play another Acclaimed Contender, saying, I've got to hit something this time, and hopefully drawing a Knight or Legendary Artifact from the deck.
Well, there we go, Rimrock Knight. Not a bad way to pump up your attack power, but it's starting to feel like Rogue Refiners has got just too much stuff after all this. Seeming like that decision to preserve the Vivian Arcbow Ranger is really paying off.
Absolutely, and you can see Vivian now getting to that point where she may actually be able to activate that minus ability again to take out any serious threats an Assassin drops. Of course, there's none on the board right now because that 3 mana is tapped out, can't give the Knight Death Touch. So Questing Beast still able to just get in for damage over and over. Of course, an Assassin can block with the Acclaimed Contenders, but with only 6 power between them, all they can do is just try and stem the bleeding for now.
Yeah, Vivian, I think definitely going to take MVP nod for this time around. I mean, the Questing Beast certainly seemed to complete the strategy of Rogue Refiners. We can see Knight of the Ebon Legion just going to be thrown in front for Ninison.
Yeah.
I don't even know what they can draw right now to get out of this situation.
Unfortunately, it looks like there's nothing. We've just seen the concession. We're going to go to sideboarding and see what changes are going to be happening here. We're currently looking at Rogue Refiners deck, what changes they might be looking at making here. They've got quite a wide range of stuff in the sideboard. I don't think they have sort of super targeted options to go in a very strong direction. I think they just have a diversity of answers, so they've always got something good they can do against any deck they come up across. So they may even find there's not huge changes they want to make here. Certainly, game one went all their way. Whether or not that's just the matchup or whether that's actually just a little bit of bad luck for an assassin, I think we'll see what Rogue Refiners thinks about that when we see whether he makes any changes or not.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly in that last game, it felt like, with the Edgewall Innkeeper going down, that was so risky. I mean, we know that, Edgewall Innkeeper can draw so many cards, can fix so many bad hands. I mean, while Rogue Refiners, while there wasn't that bad hand there that time round, I have to wonder what the game would have been like if that draw off the top had just been a little bit different.
Absolutely. Both of these decks, very powerful, have hugely explosive plays at their disposal. So it can just be little tiny edges like that of just having a single turn, having a poor draw can make all the difference. Definitely saw an Embercleave come in here and some Lava Coils. So looking like trying to find that sort of combat trick to win combat against the other creatures, trying to bring in that removal to take out threats on the other side of the board is going to be the play of the day for Rogue Refiners. Still waiting on an Assassin's sideboarding to complete. I think that will be any moment now, though, and we'll be going back in for game 2.
So, Piers, something I'm picking out from an Assassin's deck, even though, I don't know if we even specifically pointed this out as of yet, both of these players are bringing that mighty Embercleave. We've got Steel Claw Lance as well for the second pick bear player in that Assassin to be able to, just keep throwing out as much equipment as possible. In that last game, I don't think we got to see any of it from either side.
No, we didn't actually get that deep into their decks, which, again, we might find that some of these sort of more value-orientated cards like that, like perhaps the Innkeeper or the Great Henge, not so relevant in this matchup because they're just so fast and the game's going to end before those things start to matter. That may be why in game 1 we saw Rogue Refiners willing to sacrifice their Edgewall Innkeeper to preserve their on-board state.
All right, I can see here we have got that Innkeeper once again, as well as a Lovestruck Beast to enable, but that's a lot of lands in an opening hand, where, as you said, it's going to be all about the aggression.
Absolutely. So I think no surprises that he's looking at mulliganing this away. Of course, Edgewall Innkeeper into Lovestruck Beast can start things chaining off, but if your Innkeeper gets blown up before that happens, you're in trouble.
All right, well, that is a pretty harsh mulligan through there, but it's if you can get the Edgewall Innkeeper into these Lovestruck, or at least some of these Lovestruck Beasts, I don't think you can keep all of them, then you release off to a decent start, dropping 2. So that's just one Edgewall Innkeeper, one Lovestruck Beast, and you hope for the best.
Absolutely. Again, if you can get that beast down and draw off of the Innkeeper, you can chain into another adventure and draw a huge hand. Second Innkeeper there is going to be very significant for that, actually. There's a very strong chance now that at least one of them will be alive to see that Lovestruck Beast enter play, to draw more cards and sort of make up for those mulligans, or the lost cards from the mulligan. On the other side, we've seen Assassin has Knight of the Ebon Legion, hugely powerful creature, followed up by Worthy Knight, able to potentially build a very large board state very fast. Of course, that's going to be an interesting tension between Rogue Refiners able to draw a lot of cards but not really interact on the board, whereas an Assassin able to apply a lot of pressure very quick.
And we saw last time round how much Rogue Refiners put down that priority in nailing out the Worthy Knight before it got going. This time round has no such option, just hoping to hold on with, yes, as you mentioned, at least one of those Innkeepers next time round. I think they might be able to, though. If this Worthy Knight's going to get popped off, that won't leave any mana spare for removal.
That's absolutely right, and I think that might be what we see here. I think the Assassin is perhaps going to be trying to push the advantage whilst they have it, which is why we're seeing an aggressive attack there. Of course, Rogue Refiners could have traded off 2 of their creatures for the Worthy Knight, or perhaps even 1 for the Knight of the Ebon Legion, but deciding that they'd rather keep their board state for the time being.
All right, so what's going to come down? There's the double draw there for the Innkeeper. There's the Embercleave who were waiting for you. And with a bunch of small creatures, that could be a realistic possibility for Rogue Refiners next time round.
That's absolutely right. This could get very explosive very fast. Interesting, didn't go for the attack there. Could have put his opponent down to 16 life. The Lovestruck Beast plus Embercleave representing 10 trampling damage per turn right now. So while he doesn't know it, an assassin under some serious pressure right now to find an answer or end this game quickly.
Yeah, not getting the Worthy Knight going as of yet, but we'll finally get the chance to. That Death Touch is going to do a good job of standing in the way of a Lovestruck Beast, but not a Lovestruck Beast when it's got Trample.
Absolutely right. Of course, it will take the Lovestruck Beast out, but it's only going to stop one of that 10 damage. And then the Embercleave, as an equipment, you can just pay the equip cost and move it to the next creature. So very powerful to be able to repeatedly get that effect. Assassin's board looking pretty respectable now, though. With that Worthy Knight giving you a second creature for each creature you play, you're able to get a pretty big board of creatures very fast.
Well, this is going to call for the big commit for Rogue Refiners. We're talking about this, maybe going for this big attack, throwing all the creatures forward. Presumably that means the Edgewall Innkeeper and the 1/1 are all going to get slain if, we do see Rogue going for the big attack to get the Embercleave going.
Absolutely, and I think seeing that Paradise Druid come down is what stayed his hand there. The Paradise Druid allows him to create one more mana next turn, plus the land he'll play. That lets him cast the Embercleave without having to attack with all of his smaller creatures, meaning that he can keep the Edgewall Innkeepers back, try and generate more card advantage later on, in case the Embercleave doesn't carry the game on its own.
I have to wonder what Ninison is thinking here, in terms of, why there's no play coming forward. I mean, the Farmer Knight, as you mentioned, has got that Death Touch, but what's this? Getting it some little jabs in with the 1/1s, maybe? I think there's a little bit of scouting from Ninison here, trying to figure out what Rogue's going for.
Absolutely, and of course, remember, Ninison also has access to Embercleave, so Rogue Refiners is probably doing the math right now to figure out whether or not he can afford to let these creatures through. Right now, Rimrock Knight plus Knight of the Ebon Legion representing 4 damage, potentially more if he decides to put mana into either of them. Looks like they're doing both. So this is going to deal enough damage to put a counter on the Knight of the Ebon Legion, making it a more powerful threat for the turns to come. And Rogue Refiner's down at 7 life, just one Embercleave away from dying at this stage.
Oh man, got to keep track of those numbers. We have got a Domri's ambush there to be able to get a little bit of removal going on. Looks like it will be the Knight of the Ebon Legion picked away. No extra source of Death Touch and burst damage.
Yeah, that's right. I think the Knight is definitely a safe choice to remove here. Of course, Worthy Knight generating value is tempting, but the Knight of Ebon Legion is just going to be a problem that gets worse and worse over time. So
here comes the attack. We can see that we've got ourselves, I think, yes, just enough mana. Let's see what the block comes in from Ninison. Presumably that Falmar Knight going in front of the Lovestruck Beast, but what else as well?
Of course, remember the Lovestruck Beast gets the +1/+1 counter from the Domri's ambush, so it's now representing 12 damage from the Embercleave. So pretty important an assassin puts something in front of it. Just the Falmar Knight is going to take the beast out, but still 11 trampling damage coming through here. Both players in quite a precarious position, life total wise.
Oh wow, I can't wait to see what Ninison's got us for next time rounders. Wait a second, of course! The first strike from Lovestruck Beast bypassed the Death Touch.
Of course, yes. A great way of beating Death Touch is the first strike ability in Double Strike. So with Double Strike, you deal damage to your opponent's creature first, then both creatures deal damage to each other. So definitely pretty punished for making that block on an assassin's side of the board.
You can see from Rogue Refiners, they're seeing the end is near. They're willing to give up their Innkeepers, knowing they've got the best thing they could ever possibly ask for. The 7/7 Double Strike Trampler. Ninison, I have to think they need a Embercleave of their own.
Yeah, definitely has to be something of a similarly high impact. Would that get them there? I think it would. Throwing that on the Rimrock Knight, unfortunately, not available to them right now. So just deploying some more creatures to try and soak some damage. But I don't think it's going to be enough here. Do they have a line that lets them survive the attack next turn? The Rimrock Knights critically can't block, so it's just the 3/1/1s on the assassin's side holding up the defenses against the crashing in, double strike trampling, Embercleave wielding Lovestruck Beast of Doom on Rogue Refiner's side of the board. That's coming in now against that pretty dangerously low 3 life total. I think we could be about to see the end here.
Yeah, I really looked like Ninasin was able to pull this one back, but as we can see, those 1-1s not even remotely up to it. Even if the Rimrock Knights could block, I still think that wouldn't be enough to stop the kill.
I really don't think it would be. We're looking at even more damage with the extra +1/+1 on the Lovestruck Beast. 14 damage needed to be soaked up there for Ninasin to survive. So that's going to wrap up our game 2 here with a second win for Rogue Refiners, taking the round here.
Really, really nicely done. I think I'm gonna have nightmares about that Lovestruck Beast with the Embercleave for quite some time. Oh man, that was real nasty. And of course, some of the things that people are bringing in to deal with, with the witches' ovens and things that are going around, I'm sure we're gonna get a lot of mileage out of trying to keep these Embercleaves from the door.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of even main deck answers being brought in to take out artifacts to be able to deal with the cats. But of course, Embercleave is a pretty big threat as well. The issue with the Embercleave, though, is that it kills you right now. So some of these other answers we're seeing against the cats are sorcery speed, they're reactive, you do it sort of after it's come down because you know you've got several turns before you're going to die. The Embercleave, you might have to have the answer immediately or you lose. So perhaps a little bit harder to deal with, though of course a little bit more expensive to get into play.
So, I mean, from those last 2 games, it felt like for the side of second pick Bear, they didn't really ever get out of the blocks in their games. Was that to do with the particular matchup they were facing here and how brutally quick it was, or just, how the decks match up themselves?
I definitely think that's a factor. Of course, in game 1, we did see a little bit of a stumble with the acclaimed contender not finding targets. But I think actually that leads to the clue of what the issue in the matchup was for second pick Bear. Ultimately, it's just consistency. Second pick Bear playing a 3-color deck based around a tribal theme. Not even all of their creatures are knights. They have 4 dinosaurs in there. They're certainly not. So while they're capable of very powerful things, they can't do it with the consistency of the Gruul deck. The Gruul deck isn't relying on these sort of intricate overlapping synergies. Of course, it has the adventure package, but unlike the adventure decks, it isn't built all around that. The creatures stand on their own right. Bone Crusher Giant, huge powerful creature with a removal spell stapled to it. Lovestruck Beast, huge powerful creature with a little bit of card advantage stapled to it. All of these creatures are just good if you just draw them and cast them on curve, and you're in a 2-color deck. So that consistency over the course of a tournament is going to pay out for you.
Just on the subject of consistency, I just want to really point out, because this is something that I couldn't believe coming into that game, particularly the way which it ended with the Embercleave. There were, and I'm just going to double check if I'm remembering this correctly. Yes, and I don't believe we saw this change with sideboards, but there were twice as many Embercleaves in the second pick Bears player deck than there were in the Wizards deck. So honestly, I was waiting for right until the end of the game. I was like, there's going to be an Embercleave, maybe 2. But
Absolutely.
sadly not.
Yeah, so UA Wizards, even in that second game after sideboarding, only had 3 copies. We can assume Assassin is still stuck with the full 4 for game 2, and certainly has the potential to draw some powerful explosive plays, but again, no different to Rogue Refiners. Both decks have powerful things that they can do when the draws go right for them. So that's where that consistency starts to matter a little bit more. We actually saw an Assassin in game 2 make a play on that line with the Knight of the Ebon Legion. There was a turn 3 where playing the Knight as the... Sorry, not the Knight of the Ebon, I apologise. It's the Falmai Knight, the 1/1 Death Touch for 1. Could have played it as the 1/1 Death Touch for 1 and forgotten about the adventure side. Got the Death Toucher in play to try and slow the bleeding. Got a trigger from the creature that pops out the one.
Oh, the Worthy Knights, yes.
The Worthy Knight. Got a trigger from the Worthy Knight, built up a bigger board state, but instead decided to spend the whole 3 mana for the turn just drawing 1 card with the adventure side. I don't think out of greed, I don't think it was about scrambling for resources. I think it was about that consistency. They were looking for the pieces that sort of glue everything together. You know, they can make lots of knights, but until they find themselves, you know, with a Midnight Reaper that lets them draw cards from them dying, or a Wintermoor Commander that buffs all of their power, individually they're a little bit low impact. So I think that's what we were seeing in an assassin deck, is that perhaps what they might be doing coming away from this is saying, do I need to up the amount of Foulmire Knights that I have to keep that consistency, get my deck velocity, the speed at which I draw through it to find my good cards, that a little bit higher. Also might be sort of staring accusingly at the acclaimed contender. Certainly it was a little bit unfortunate, but coming in as a 3/3 and not drawing the cards certainly hurt a lot in game 1.
Well, if we're talking about Embercleaves, we're going to take a quick trip to the other side of the temperature spectrum as UEA Wizards, we mentioned before, they're associated with the mental health group there. Their mascot, Ice, is their therapy dog. We'd asked to give them a shout out. They are extremely adorable. See if you can find some pictures of them online. But we're going to need to be moving on in just a little bit to looking towards our second match of the day, which hopefully we'll see some cats and if not some dogs. Edinburgh Eldrazi currently just outside of the top 3, but that's still a pretty good place to be right now.
Absolutely. So we talked about the seeding before. So going into the next season of the competition, which of course Edinburgh and Drowsy are guaranteed to do at this point, you want to make sure that you're seeded as high as possible. So what that means essentially is that if you're first seed, you won't be paired against the second seed in the early stages, because we want to ensure that, you know, the stronger teams have a good chance of making it to the later stages rather than knocking themselves out. Knocking each other out in the early stages. So because we're looking at pairings of 2, naturally, normally you'd think 1, 2, and 3 are the important spots. It's actually 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are the teams that are going to be distributed the furthest away from each other and have the easiest route to the finals.
All right, guys, as we said, Edinburgh Eldrazi will bring you off this break. Currently 4th place team. They've been fighting with all the best teams so far, so fully expect to see a fantastic best of 3 to close out this evening. We'll be going to a short break while the teams do get set up. So, of course, want to thank our sponsors, Republic of Gamers and Intel, for making these streams possible. And we hope you'll stick with us for the second half of our broadcast this evening. We'll be back as soon as we possibly can.
Waiting for the time to pass you by. Hope the winds of change will change your mind. I could give 1,000 reasons why, and I know you, and you've got to make it on your own, but we don't have to grow up. We can stay forever young. Living on my sofa, drinking rum and cola underneath the rising sun. I could give 1,000 reasons why, but you're going, and you know that all you have to do is stay a minute. Just take your time. The clock is ticking, so stay. All you have to do is wait a second. Your hands on mine. The clock is ticking, so stay. Where you're going, and you know that all you have to do is stay. Where you're going, and you know that. Where you're going, and you know that all you have to do is stay. Where you're going, and you know that all you have to do is stay. Won't admit what I already know. I've never been the best at letting go. I don't wanna spend the night alone. Guess I need you, and I need to make it on my own, but I don't wanna grow up. We can stay forever young. Living on my sofa, drinking rum and cola underneath the rising sun. I could give 1,000,000 reasons why, but you're going, and you know that all you have to do is stay a minute. Just take your time. The clock is ticking, so stay. All you have to do is wait a second. Your hands on mine. The clock is ticking, so stay. Where you're going, and you know that all you have to do is stay. Where you're going, and you know that. Where you're going, and you know that all you have to do is stay. Where you're going, and you know that all you have to do is stay. I know you're smart, you spin me round like a knot. You know the pieces of my heart. Sometimes it's fun, you pull my strings one by one until you get me into one. Lately I've been thinking if you want it tough, then let's play around. Lately I've been thinking if you want it tough, then let's play rough.
give me straight to me. You're just gonna get my vibe. I don't need it. Telling me how to be, telling me how to be. You're just gonna get my vibe. I don't need it. Give me straight to me, give me straight to me. You're just gonna get my vibe. I don't need it. Telling me how to be, telling me how to be. You're just gonna get my vibe. Just noise, white noise. Just noise, white noise. I'm hearing static. You're like an automatic. You just wanna keep me on repeat and hear me cry. Just noise, white noise. Just noise,
midnight. The end of a perfect evening.
Thanks so much. I had loads of fun.
So did I.
Good night, Eddie.
Night, Ann.
Welcome back, guys, to the second half of our final week of the Magic the Gathering Arena campus battle. My name is Peter Canavan, joined by Piers Segal for our final best of three of the season. Piers, I'm gutted it's already so close to being over.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful journey over these 7 weeks, seeing the teams go through all kinds of evolution, their decks and their strategies, watching the sort of highs and lows as they've navigated through the event.
So, guys, as I said, we've had our first best of three concluded with the UEA Wizards and their favourite and best Doggo Ice managing to break it through. Edinburgh Eldrazi are our second team up. We now know who their opponents are going to be. It's from Protection from Reading, from the University of Reading, Matty B. Now, Piers, we've got some kind of unusual decks coming out here for our second best of three, and that's what we expect from our top teams: innovation.
Absolutely. So we're looking at, first of all, Jay Legolas. He's been the Simic player all the way through for Eldrazi, so he was running their Oko deck. Of course, Oko is no more, so he's been experimenting with where to go next with Simic. Looks like he's going big, so he's going to be playing a bunch of elementals that are able to ramp. So he's got things like Leafkin Druid, Paradise Druid, Risen Reef. These are all elementals able to get land or mana into play fast. And then what he's ramping into are huge 7-8 mana creatures, and the finale of Devastation, the big X mana spell that you want to spend 12 mana on. In exchange for getting all of that mana, he's getting huge game-winning threats, though. These cards can come in and end the game on the spot. Going across to Protection from Reading, we're looking at a Judith the Scourge Diva cat deck. So this is a deck that's looking to play disposable creatures and then sacrifice them for value. Most of that value in the red-black form that we're seeing here is in dealing damage directly to your opponent's face. And we've mentioned them a few times, the cat. So this is a card called Cauldron Familiar, a 1/1 for a single black mana. It comes into play, deals 1 damage to your opponent, gains you 1 life. However, you can also reanimate it. If you sacrifice a food token, you get that familiar right back, and you get to drain them 1 more time. You pair that up with a Witch's Oven, which is a 1 mana colorless artifact. That has the ability tap, sacrifice a creature, make a food. You're then able to do that for free every single turn. So every turn you're draining your opponent for 1 life just on its own. You're also getting to block something on the ground, but then you pair it up with cards like Judith the Scourge Diva, which deals 1 damage to something whenever one of your creatures dies, and you start to generate a lot of hard to deal with damage quite quickly. So going to be looking to end the game quickly on this side with doing lots of hard to deal with damage. On the other side of the board, Enver Eldrazi's deck, they're going to be looking to build up their resources really fast for 1 huge hammer blow game ending play.
So we've got, a real kind of immovable force, unstoppable, object. Whichever way around it ends up going, they end up going into each other. I mean, from where we're sitting, Piers, if we've got one deck that's trying to chew you away with all these tiny little kiddies being flung at your face, and you've got another deck that's going to go big, what kind of needs to happen for both these players in order to get this all-important first game win of a potential 3?
Well, I would say for the ramp deck, it's got the classic issue every ramp deck has ever had, which is if you draw ramp early, play it, gather your resources, draw a big threat, play that and win, great. What happens if all you draw is ramp and you have nothing to do with that mana? Or what happens if all you draw is big powerful things to cast, but you've got no way to get there because, hey, how are you going to cast an 8-drop without any ramp cards? So that's going to be a big issue for the Simic deck, is the consistency of drawing the right number of the 2 pieces. Looking over at the Rakdos deck, I think it's just a power level thing. It's actually a reasonably powerful deck, but it just can't compete with these huge 8 mana plays that are just out of the range of what it can have. So I think that's going to be the more consistent deck. The question is, can it kill its opponent fast enough to hold off these powerful late game plays?
So something we already pointed out for the Rakdos deck that we were talking about here is the Judith Scourge Diva, which is something which we haven't really seen before, but is the adaptation that people are picking up over the course of the time. But something else that's jumping out at me as a one-of in the Rakdos deck is the God Eternal Bontu. Now, why is that one being brought in, if even it's only as a one-off?
Well, God Eternal Bontu is an excellent addition to the deck because it allows you to sacrifice your creatures for value. So this is going to be a powerful play. Of course, it can actually sacrifice any permanent, but we are looking to sacrifice our creatures in this deck. We have redundant creatures that we can dispose of, and upgrading that into a full card with the Bontu is immensely powerful. The reason why there might only be the one is you don't want to be stuck with 2 at a time. So that's why you wouldn't play too many. But the one is actually really powerful because all of this God cycle, there's 1 for each color, have this ability. When it dies, you can put it back into your deck 3rd from the top. And of course, because your deck's really good at killing your own creatures, it means that you can just keep replaying the 1 copy over and over again whenever you find it. That might be a sort of backdoor way for the Judith deck to outvalue the otherwise more powerful Simic deck.
So to turn our eyes back across to that Simic deck, and I believe we will be having our first game very, very soon. We've been kind of seeing that the Witch's Oven, together with the Witch's Familiar, able to occupy such a big place right now. Something we're noticing from Jay Legolas with that Simic deck is to actually bringing some main boarded cards specifically to allow them to deal with that kind of strategy.
Absolutely right. So of course the Cauldron Familiar can be reanimated if you can get hold of a food, but once that Witch's Oven is gone, there's nothing you can do about it. So bringing in answers that deal specifically with artifacts is a really great way to beat that value engine. And Simic deck here is playing 3 copies main deck of Thrashing Bronzodon. This is a 3/4 for only 3 mana, so it's just a great creature on its own right, but it also has the ability 1 mana, sacrifice, destroy target artifact or enchantment, but of course that's not so relevant for this particular matchup. So it's going to be a really good way of shutting down aggressive creatures. Keep in mind the Rakdos deck, it is an aggro deck, it's playing lots of creatures, it wants to attack. Attacking into a 3-4 on turn 3 is very challenging. It'll also turn off that Witch's Oven line of draining your opponent out.
All right, guys, I believe we've got your game number or match number 2 in just a second. Now, thanks again to our sponsors, Republic of Gamers and Intel, as we'll be shortly seeing that first mulligan coming up. As Piers has been saying, the beginning of this game is going to be so important for both these players to see how well they can either get their strategies going or keep themselves alive.
We see immediately Jay Legolas keeps a hand with 2 ramp spells, that critical Brontodon we just spoke about, and a Cavalier of Thorns. Not the most powerful thing to ramp into in the deck, but still a good use of that fast mana. For 5 mana, you're getting a 5/6 reach, which is no slouch as a creature. It'll also put another land into play for you. So it does double duty for the deck and helps smooth out that consistency issue by allowing you to have value out of your early game ramp and ramp into your bigger things in the late game. So not a bad start. Unfortunately, drawn another Paradise Druid there, so might be starting to suffer from that too much ramp, not enough targets. We'll see how that develops. On the other side of the board, though, Matty B has that Cauldron Familiar.
Yeah, we were waiting to see if it's going to have a oven to go along with the Familiar. Of course, as you mentioned, Thrashing Bronzeton's going to be able to take out one of those, but we know that Matty B is going to be playing the maximum allowed all 4.
Absolutely, there's no reason not to. It's not legendary, and of course you can activate each one individually with only 1 Cauldron Familiar, so the more the better, even ignoring the fact that you want to be able to deal with these threats, the answers that people are bringing in against the threat. So definitely a high chance of finding a Cauldron in the not too distant future. The Witch's Oven.
So we'll be looking through a couple of the extra cards on there. We've got the Castle Vantress, a little bit of a longer proposition for Jay Legolas in case they do start really searching for cards. But I kind of feel like with what they've got right now, they're in a pretty good spot as long as those lands keep coming. And there we go, the Thrashing Brontodon is ready to go out in the field. This is before Matty B's even played a Witch's Oven.
That's right, and he's playing it, Jay Legolas is playing it with only 3 mana, meaning he can't keep 1 mana up to sacrifice it in response to any sort of removal. So this is maybe a window for Matty B to deal with the Thrashing Brontodon now, so he knows he can get his value engine down later in the game. Instead, developing the board with a Footlight Fiend and a Priest of Forgotten Gods. This another powerful sacrifice outlet, though, allows you to sack 2 creatures to draw a card, get some mana, make your opponent sacrifice a creature. So if Matty B is able to keep the Cauldron Familiar and Footlight Fiend on the board next turn, there's a good chance that Priest is going to get activated and take care of the Brontodon.
Yeah, well, we knew, coming into this one that there's so much focus on that Witch's Oven as the source of problems. But for Matty B, and I think for all of these players who are playing this, this sacrifice style, in turn, they've got to be super aware they need other ways to get ahead as well.
That's right. So like the ramp deck, you have a mixture of cards that are really good to be sacrificed, like a Footlight Fiend that deals damage when it dies. And you have a mixture of that with cards that are very good at sacrificing things like the Priest of Forgotten Gods. So you might think, well, maybe they'll have the same issue. But of course, cards like Priest of the Forgotten Gods can also be sacrificed fodder if you need them to be. And here we see the activation immediately, taking out one of those Paradise Druids on Jay Legolas' side of the board. Difficult to do because of the hexproof, so sacrifice gets you around that effect.
Yeah, very smart play there. Of course, we know that still leaves enough mana up for that Cavalier of Thorns and its broski to be able to come down in the future turns. So it's still looking pretty good for Jay Legolas in this first game. We'll see what else Matty B has got in the tank, as they've still, of course, got that Cauldron Familiar waiting for some food to bring it back to the field.
And here comes a God Eternal Bontu that may allow Matty B to dig through his deck. It just depends whether he thinks drawing fresh cards is worth giving up the ones he has in play. I wouldn't be shocked to see either choice here, to be honest with you. Just getting a 5/6 Menace into play is actually a pretty big play on its own, so you don't necessarily need to go for the added value. Of course, as you said, getting that oven into play would be really valuable, so the draw might be something he goes for here.
And we know that Thrashing Brontodon is waiting for the opportunity to stomp all over the oven, But back across to Jay Legolas, looking in that graveyard. Do bear in mind as well that Cavalier of Thorns is an extra effect if you have to get bits back from your graveyard to the top of your deck, and I assume that's why Legolas is taking a peek in there.
Absolutely. That is on death, though, so even if there's no targets right now, it may be perhaps that Brontodon comes back, fights through some removal to come back and play and threaten any ovens that come down for Matty B later in the game. Also of note, alongside the Castle Vantress, there's also a Castle Garenbrig. This is the land that allows you to tap for 6 mana to be spent on creatures and only costs 5 mana to activate, including tapping itself. So actually effectively taps for 2 mana when you're casting creatures. So it's a land that essentially ramps for you for free.
I mean, this is something we've been seeing from Eldraine. A lot of experiments on the wizard design side of things to try and put some of these effects onto land. And as you can see, a lot of them are getting used here. Got the Vantress as well as the Garenbrig down there for Jay Legolas. No castle so far for Matty B, as we do see more sacrifices being forced on both sides of the field.
Interesting to note that the 1 point of damage was dealt to the Cavalier of Thorns rather than to Jay Legolas directly, or something like the Brontodon with a lower life total. So are we perhaps going to see a way for Matty B to turn that 1 damage into taking out a Cavalier of Thorns here? Of course, it may be that he's thinking about a card deeper in his deck because the Priest will draw him a card and generate mana for him from that activation. Can't be repeated endlessly like the Witch's Oven, but very powerful. In fact, Witch's Oven has now come down, and the Thrashing Brontodon has been taken away. Only temporarily. It's only to end of turn, but of course you can use the Oven to sacrifice it at the end of your turn, so your opponent never gets the creature back. So pretty brutal effect there. It's going to create an interesting tension, though. As we said, that Thrashing Brontodon able to take out the Witch's Oven, Cavalier of Thorns dying would put the Thrashing Brontodon back in Jay Legolas's hand. So what's Matty B going to do with this big 5/6 reach creature? Is he going to ignore it, or is he going to interact with it and potentially put a Brontodon in the opponent's hand?
Well, we know as well, we're getting to the part of the game for Jay Legolas. They've got their 6 mana out already. They've got a 7 mana Agent of Treachery in hand to steal away all of Matty Boy's best things. I guess at this point, it's just a case of finding that one more land for Jay Legolas to really go off.
Well, actually, keep in mind, Castle Garenbrig taps for 2 mana if you're casting an expensive creature, so that Agent of Treachery could come down immediately. Looks like Jay Legolas opting instead to make the Cavalier much bigger body on the board as a 5/6 reach, also puts a land into play for you. The Agent of Treachery only a 2, but allows you to steal one of your opponent's creatures permanently, and actually you can do a little bit more if you're able to steal multiple creatures, which may be relevant now Jay Legolas has drawn his quasi-duplicate, or rather discarded it into the graveyard. It's a card that you can cast once from your graveyard. This is going to let him make multiple copies of a creature in play, duplicating their Enter the Battlefield ability. So for something like an Agent of Treachery, that can allow him to steal multiple creatures.
I think life may have gone too low, though, for Jay Legolas. They've been trying mightily to put their strategy together, but ultimately they've done nearly nothing to Matty B's life total, and they've got no way of stopping that Witch's Oven from going off, down to 5 life, and the Priest is ready as well for even more sacrificing.
Absolutely, and this is the power of the Rakdos Sacrifice deck. Sure, Jay Legolas has 2 fantastic blockers in the 5/6 reaches, but just not relevant. Matty B not having to attack to finish off this game. He can just activate his Oven, activate his Priest, deal damage directly to the face. Looks like that Menace is going to finish the game for us, though.
Oh, wow. I mean, this is one of the wonderful things about Magic, is just, how you can end up in these situations where you've got these 2 strategies racing to go forwards. But I guess the question has been answered for us, at least in this first game, going across to the second Bears, that that they would just be able to get their strategy online a little bit faster. I guess from the Eldrazi side of things, the Edinburgh side of things, they're going to have to try and bring things forward a little bit in game number 2.
And that's an interesting tension for them for sideboarding, is do they bring in more answers to the Cat Oven, or do they try to streamline their deck to be that little bit faster? It might be that those 2 things pull them in different directions. I can definitely see that the Return to Nature is high on Jay Legolas's list here, right? So remains to be seen which way they'll go. I don't think there's an enormous speed the deck up, but it certainly seems like that might be necessary. Of course, we didn't see the sort of powerful accelerant of the deck, the Risen Reef, in game one. Risen Reef, the 3-mana elemental. It's just a 1/1, but when it comes into play, you can put a land card from the top of your deck into play. And that triggers every time you play another element, so another Leafkin Druid, or a Cavalier of Thorns, or a Hydroid Krasis. Any of these will trigger it as well. So that might be the extra sort of bit of gas to speed him into the late game fast enough to outpace Matty B.
Oh man, well, I mean, the End Rays Forerunners there, if we look across all the way to the right-hand side of the deck, that is an 8-mana creature. You mentioned it right back at the beginning. I mean, that does an amazing job of giving everybody else, +2/+2, Vigilance and Trample, but with a creature that expensive, I don't know how that ever gets into play.
It's hugely powerful. As you say, it comes at a real cost. One of the ways you can get there faster, though, is with Nissa, Who Shakes the World. Actually, 4 copies in Jay Legolas's list, so will come up fairly often. This is a 5-mana Planeswalker with a static ability. So it has the regular plus and minus that a regular Planeswalker will have. It also generates an ability constantly where every forest you control taps for an additional green mana, so doubling your mana very quickly to that 8.
All right, guys, we're in to our second game. Jay Legolas again on the bottom, holding on to a hand full of land and some of that mana acceleration we were talking about before. Thrashing Brontodon as well there. So a decent start, but yet to see the big guns.
Well, of course, he also has a Temple of Mystery that's going to come into play tapped, but will tap for either color of mana. Additionally, you get to scry one when it comes into play, so you're going to get to look at the top of your deck and try to find an answer that's going to be, what's your target to ramp into with this Gilded Goose, this Leafkin Druid.
Of course, we're seeing Jay Legolas taking a little bit of time out to play with their pets by the side of the arena. Very important to make sure you pet all of your pets before the match gets underway.
Absolutely. And I think the Fox pet has been particularly successful. I know that I'm looking forward to unlocking mine at the end of the series. Looks like we're now on to turn 2 for Jay Legolas, though. He's managed to get all of his ramp into play, but hasn't yet hit anything to play out with it. Meanwhile, Matty B, no play at all for turn 1, so giving Jay Legolas that little bit of breathing room to get there.
And we've got to remember that this mana for Jay Legolas is going to pay off so big. The Temple of Mystery not coming down yet. You mentioned the Scry available to be able to dig through. Will come in tapped. So it looks like Jay Legolas just trying to get as much stuff out on the board as possible. Even if that stuff doesn't have any power at all, there's some pretty decent bodies on there. 0/2, 0/3. The Lava Coil to blow up the Leafkin Druid. Apparently Matty B not down to allow Legolas to build up that mana base.
Of course, Leafkin Druid, the target over the Gilded Goose. The Goose you need to constantly feed food to get mana from it, whereas the Druid just taps for 1 mana on its own. And in fact, if you can get 4 creatures total, taps for 2. So pretty powerful ramp creature. Well worth taking that out early. The Lava Coil deals damage to kill creatures, so it can take out some mid-range things like the Brontodon, but it's not dealing with the big, scary, very expensive threats in the late game. So slowing your opponent from getting there is a good way of using it.
All right, so Brontodon's out. We've got the Agent of Treachery waiting for Jay Legolas. Eventually, I'm kind of curious, Piers, how important do you see Agent of Treachery of being in this particular matchup?
Well, I think it really depends on what comes out on Matty B's side of the board. Of course, cards like the Priest are very, very important, like the 1/2 that we saw in the previous game that taps to sacrifice creatures for huge value. If you take that away from your opponent, they may only have sacrifice creatures left and no real game plan. So whilst you might not be getting huge utility out of it, sort of functioning as a removal spell, it takes something away from your opponent as well as you getting the creature. So for lack of other ways of interacting, the Agent of Treachery kind of has to be it for them.
We've seen Thrashing Brontodon being stolen away by Matty B's claim the Firstborn. Does manage to get the hit in for 3.
Absolutely.
It's just, yes, there's nothing to sacrifice the Brontodon for, so just going back to Legolas' side of the field.
That's right. You, I believe, need a target to be able to activate that ability. So Unfortunately, not able to sacrifice itself to 0 value, or at least unfortunate for Matty P. I'm sure Jay Legolas is very happy to have it safely home there. You see that temple coming to play here, bottoming an unwanted land, digging that one step closer to either the ramp spell that's going to let him cast that Agent of Treachery, or a different sort of powerful late game card like the Planeswalker we were talking previously. Nissa at 5 mana could be cast right away next turn.
This definitely feels like a much stronger start to things for Jay Legolas, though. Matty B basically just, playing only, I believe, for just the couple of cards so far to get a little bit of damage, a little bit of removal. We know that Gilded Goose, of course, is going to be able to keep pumping out that food to give, Jay Legolas that extra life. And I wonder if Matty B can recover from a slow start.
It does seem like it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle for him. Of course, these aggressive decks, they like to set the tone of the battle right from the start of the game and be chipping away at that life total so that your options start to be constrained and you have to make choices you don't want to make. That said, Jay Legolas, a little bit slow as well. He's managed to get the ramp, but so far all he's ramping into is Agent of Treachery, which, whilst a great card, not very effective against an empty board. It is just a 2/3. It's that enter the battlefield, steal a creature that matters. You can steal any permanent, so could take a land. Matty B, though, filling up on targets. We've got 2 Mayhem Devils and a Footlight Fiend. All very powerful fodder for the Agent of Treachery to target.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those good news, bad news situations. The Mayhem Devil's so incredibly powerful. But yeah, right now for Matty B, no way to get those sacrifices going. Would otherwise be able to start going crazy, especially if they had the combination between the familiar and the other one.
Absolutely. One thing to keep in mind, though, Mayhem Devil deals 1 damage to any target whenever any player sacrifices a permanent. So it's actually going to do it right now because Jay Legolas just sacrificed a food. So that's going to be 2 damage from the 2 Mayhem Devils. We might see the Gilded Goose go down. On the flip side, that's creating the only thing that's being sacrificed right now. Maybe that's better to go to the face with that 2 damage.
Yeah, of course, we've got to remember the Thrashing Bronzodon has the effect to sacrifice itself as well. Fortunately now, we're going to be seeing opposing Mayhem Devils from this point out as they both attempt to ping away at each other. We know, of course, that Matty B has got the superior ability to make those sacrifices happen, but as you said, it will still trigger for both sides. Matty B and Legolas both able to ping away. Presumably, the Footlight Fiend will be the first point of attention.
Absolutely. The Footlight Fiend deals 1 damage in itself when it gets sacrificed or when it dies by any means. So sacrificing that to the oven going to allow you to deal 2 damage right away. You can then sacrifice the food to gain the life. That lets you get that 3rd point of damage. So Matty Boy able to take out the Agent of Treachery or the Mayhem Devil, or just try to go for more burn to the face, depending on what he feels is going to be the sort of most important factor in finishing out this game. Jay Legolas, on the other hand, is starting to build up a bit of a serious suite of threats with the Cavalier of Thorns now in hand. We saw how important they were in getting to the late game last game, and of course would have held on for Jay Legolas had his life total been at the sort of 14 it is now. So may very well be Matty B too far behind to catch up on this one.
There we go. The Cavalier of Thorns is there. That's a roadblock that may be too big for Matty B to overcome. We can see the hoof very much on the other foot this time round. Jay Legolas getting to enjoy the feeling of playing the aggressive deck of sorts. If Matty B just not able to get out of the blocks absolutely at all. You can see there, I just don't know what could be even left in Matty B's deck that could deal with a field like this.
I think it's going to be a very tall order indeed. Jay Legolas sending in the troops, the Agent of Treachery, the only thing staying back because, of course, Mayhem Devil as a 3/3 can just eat the Treachery if he chooses to swing in. But still going to be difficult blocks for Matty B. Of course, he can sacrifice one of the creatures to the Witch's Oven to get some value out of it, but the Cavalier of Thorns, Thrashing Bronzodon, both too large for Matty B creatures to trade up with.
There we go. That's the clearing out of pretty much everything Matty B's got, down to a single life. It's astonishing based on what we got from the last time round. to have it, to be so dramatically different. I mean, we expected this more from Jay Legolas's deck than from Matty B's.
It's going to be a very exciting final game here for sure. It's been great to see this back and forth between the two decks and see how differently things can play out depending on what pieces people find. Certainly, we saw Matty B needs to get into first gear immediately. Can't just be on the back foot for this final game.
All right, so we've got one last bit of sideboarding, one game apiece. Let's see what else they've got for us. I'm still, Piers, I'm still not convinced that Jay Legolas, in a game where Matty B's deck kind of does anything, can get away with so much high end.
Absolutely. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they make any changes with their sideboarding going into this final game to account for what they've just seen. Certainly, we didn't get to see Matty B sideboarding for game 2, but it might have been that he took out some of his earlier game and is now looking to bring it back in.
Yeah, we can see the Risen Reef. I'm just trying to try to make sure if the Risen Reef got knocked out in the previous round, as perhaps in this place something else. We see the Voracious Hydra in there at the moment. Great way of dealing with some of those creatures on the board. We know that Mayhem Devil, hugely influential in the previous game, or at least it would have been had it not been half stolen.
Yes. A lot of stealing going back and forth, arguing who has this game.
All right, so we're into our decider game. Edmure Eldrazi's Jay Legolas on the bottom of your screen and Matty B in the top. Matty B's deck basically didn't do anything in the second game, but now we're coming to game 3. It could be totally different. Piers, from what you've seen so far, any predictions as to who's going to take the series?
Well, as we saw, game 1 and 2, both a little bit determined by who got off to the fastest start. Jay Legolas only has one of his colors available in this opening hand, so might stumble over his mana. Has actually drawn that breeding pool, so could be anybody's game now, although Matty B, with the Priest of Forgotten Gods in play, able to activate it next turn with one more creature, that could put him a long way ahead, taking out a Leafkin Druid, getting a little bit of ramp on his own side. But certainly it looks like both teams have sort of everything they need at their disposal to execute their game plan. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I think with the Hydroid Krasis on Jay Legolas's side, that's going to gain a lot of life if he's able to stabilize. So I think that's going to be the watermark for this game is can Matty B close it out, finish the game before that big Krasis comes down and stabilizes with the huge life gain?
We can see that the Priest of the Forgotten Gods feeling pretty perky right now. I'd imagine that's going to get sacked off to a Witch's Oven later on to bring back the familiar, but we'll have to see how it ends up developing. Still such early days. Again, this is a very, very different game to what we saw previously. It looks like Matty B is going to try and sneak through the little bit of extra damage because, of course, in this particular matchup, every single point of life is going to count. Absolutely.
And interesting line. Could have dealt a little bit more damage, slowed down Jay Legolas a little bit more this turn, decides to conserve. Presumably the Cauldron Familiar, the Footlight Fiend is relatively disposable, but does this mean that Matty B is seeing a Cauldron as his sort of only way, his Oven is his only way to finish the game?
Well, the double Witch's Oven, we mentioned this before, you only need that one Cauldron Familiar to get full use out of those ovens. But still, Matty B, while they've had a strong start to the game, it's not, they've got very little left in the tank now if this initial push doesn't work out.
Absolutely. You're either cycling the Cauldron Familiar in or out of play, or you're sacrificing to the Priest of Forgotten Gods to draw cards. So that Cauldron Familiar needs to do a lot of work. It's able to drain 2 life per turn. That's probably not a fast enough clock, as in it won't end the game in few enough turns to stop that Hydroid Krasis coming down. We're looking at Jay Legolas, he has 3 lands in play, 2 more in hand. He has 2 Leafkin Druids in play. A Cavalier of Thorns will find him another land. That Krasis is going to come down for a large amount of life in just, 2-3 turns time. That's not going to be enough time to deal 17 damage 2 points at a time.
Yeah, guys, that's something which you always have to consider. It's that clock, as Piers mentioned. It seems like time is running out for Matty B here. I think they may only have a few more draws before this game it gets completely beyond control. See if they've got anything extra special. Maybe, Acclaim the first one. That could help slow down Jay Legolas even just a little bit.
Absolutely, although a little bit risky here if he knows Jay Legolas's list. Of course, the Krasis, a huge thing to ramp into, but as an X spell, actually its converted mana cost is 2, so Claim the Firstborn, one of the best ways of dealing with a resolved Krasis. Of course, Matty B would like that never gets to that point, and by stealing the Leafkin Druid, he can sacrifice it to the Priest of Forgotten Gods and actually kill both. That's going to cause the sacrifice effect to take out the second one, so may preempt a Krasis ever coming down, definitely making a big difference to Jay Legolas's resources and his life total, and restocking Matty B's hand. So hugely powerful effect for a single mana card.
A very smart choice there, as Jay Legolas's dead certain victory starting to slip away just a little bit. We can see the Quasar duplicate in hand for Jay Legolas, not having very much to duplicate right now.
Unfortunately not. In fact, only really able to target the Cavalier. Of course, it can target a Krasis, but it won't have any counters on it, so it will just be a 0/0 flying trample and be sacrificed. And as we said, the Cavalier is a sort of nice bridge to the late game, but it isn't a way of closing the game out on its own. We really need a sort of big power play to come down for the duplicate to duplicate.
It's crazy to think as well, from the side of Matty B, before that Claim the Firstborn came down, we really were thinking their chances of getting through this game were fairly minimal, but we see how quickly that turns around with all the component parts lined up for Matty B's side of things to be able to get themselves back into circulation. We'll have to see if that Cavalier could do enough work. As you mentioned, the Quasar duplicate, we're able to put some bodies in the way, but once that life drain starts coming in, the bodies may not be enough.
Of course, the Matty B's deck, they're able to just deal damage directly to the face through any amount of blockers, so not enough just to put bodies in front of it. You've got to be able to disrupt their plans, take out ovens, take out priests, and then stabilize with some life gain or just a big play that stops your opponent from being able to catch up. The other big thing as well that you can do is just apply so much pressure that you put the defensive deck, the aggressive deck on the defensive. Of course, all of these abilities aren't actually that great at defending. So if you're able to force Matty B to use the resources to preserve their own life, they're not able to point them at your life total instead.
Of course, to talk about the tournament at large in general, as you mentioned before, we're gonna, once we come back for the spring season, we're gonna be in a completely different environment. All of the work the teams have done here to get to the top of the table to try and stay there is going to be reset once Theros Beyond Death comes out. A very different look to next season, as it looks like we might just, have that first Witch's Oven getting nailed away.
That's going to be really critical. That's a big lifeline for Legolas to find the Bronzodon, to be able to slow that clock down, that sort of halves or doubles, rather, the amount of turns it's going to take for Matty Boy to take him out. Looking at the hand, we now have the Finale of Devastation as well. That's going to be able to find any creature from Jay Legolas's deck and put it into play within a certain constraint of the mana. That's going to give that quasi-duplicate a target. So suddenly looking a lot more exciting for him. 9 life, though, pretty dangerous place to be. And we know Matty B has the Cauldron Familiar to drain that 1 life per turn. May have further damage he can get through beyond that. So Jay Legolas needs to end this game in 8 turns or less.
We can see from Matty B's side of things, they've only got a Swamp in hand right now. They've been presumably leaving that there to try and give Jay Legolas a little bit of hesitation about what they go for next. See, that Quasar duplicate is there to be able to put more bodies out onto the field and get that extra land, presumably going to build towards that big Hydroid Crisis.
That's right. And Hydroid Crisis, for those of you who aren't aware, it's X mana to get X counters on it, but you also gain half X in life and card draw. So that's going to be really critical here, getting that life total that you gain as high as possible, putting as much mana in there as you can. And of course, the Finale, you need to pay X equal to the mana cost of the creature you're finding plus the 2 mana. We're looking for sort of 7 and 8 mana creatures in this deck, so easily needs to be up at the sort of 9 to 10 mana mark to be able to make full use of it. And that's even before considering its further ability, where it gives a massive power boost to your creatures for the turn if you're spending a total of 12 mana or more on it. So even though it may look like Jay Legolas has a lot of land in play, he'd actually like a lot more. We can see Matty B going to find it very hard to get through on the ground, still able to keep activating that Witch's Oven to deal that 1 damage per turn. So still making progress, but unfortunately drawing a second swamp, not got very much going on beyond that cat.
Man, I mean, just one more creature to be able to get the priest to get extra card to get rid of one of these cavaliers. But as we pointed out before, as the Risen Reef comes down, oh boy, I think Jay Legolas might have enough going on right now to really get going.
Huge value from the Risen Reef. That triggers when it enters battlefield, but it also triggers whenever any other elemental enters the battlefield. Things like the Cavalier Elementals, there's plenty of them in the deck. Of course, the Quasi-Duplicate can be recast by discarding a card. I think we're going to see the Breeding Pool turn into a second Risen Reef here. That's going to trigger both of them, allowing Jay Legolas to draw 2 more cards and potentially put them into play directly if they're going to be land. So again, building up that mana for that huge play with the X spells coming in the next couple of turns. Risen Reef may very well be the accelerant that we mentioned before Jay Legolas needs to put this game away before Matty Boy can find that final 8 points of damage here.
Yeah, the University of Reading, Matty B, cursing at their top decks so far, as they're so close to that all-important final victory that they need to be able to take the final game of the season for University of Reading. Be keeping a close eye on what they're drawing next, but I think you're right, Piers. It seems like Legolas may have gotten over the final hurdle.
Doesn't even really need that finale now. He's found his single 8 mana creature, Enray's Forerunners. This is the big game-ending threat. A 7/7 trample haste creature that gives +2/+2 and trample to all of your other creatures. So even those little 1/1s are going to become a serious threat. Of course, I think Matty B still able to just barely survive from a swing from that. We might not see it come down immediately, but it depends how Jay Legolas values that. Of course, even if Matty B able to survive that, it puts him on the back foot. Suddenly he has to use his resources defensively. They're not as powerful for doing that.
Yeah, I think that extra life that Matty B's been accruing through the Cauldron Familiar coming in and out of play is going to be very much needed for this absolutely massive turn. We know Jay Legolas has got all the tools they need in theory, but we are going to see the execution from the Priest of the Forgotten Gods going to be sacking off the cat and the other priest just to try and reduce down Jay Legolas's board a little bit and grab themselves another card.
And I think that's exactly the right play to make here, unfortunately. Whilst it would be lovely to keep that Cauldron cat jumping in and out of play, just getting that threat level reduced on Jay Legolas' side of the board is really important. And just finding action, as we mentioned, Matty B, very unlucky to draw a few swamps in a row there. Of course, his whole deck has a low casting cost, so with the 7 mana total that he's got available, he'll be able to play any card he draws immediately. Try to recapture on the board a little bit more stability for him. Also, of note, bring Jay Legolas down to a very dangerous 4 life and really pressing the issue here. A familiar drawn from that activation, going to put him to 3. Of course, the Cauldron can then be activated to put him down to 2. All of a sudden, staring at a 1-turn clock, Matty B can win next turn if Jay Legolas isn't able to find a win as soon as it comes back to him.
What we do know is that the Cavalier of Thorns, after it got sacrificed, got back this Hydroid Krasis that is about to be played right now. We'll be able to hit in for a lot of cards, a lot of life as well. And what we know as well, which Matty B doesn't, is there's a second Hydroid Krasis in hand, ready to double up on that effect.
And that, of course, is one of the really powerful things with the Hydroid Krasis, is once you're casting it for enough mana, you draw so many cards, you can draw a second. and start chaining them together and taking over. Finding 2 goose there, not a bad thing at all. They're able to generate food tokens to gain even further life. So Jay Legolas able to cling on here in the face of the pretty deadly assault last turn.
It seems like a good day to die for Maddie. They've only got cats to stand in the way of all these elementals. Of course, we know the cat's pretty sacrificable. The oven will be able to allow the Witch's Familiar to jump in and out of play while providing a little bit of chump blocking. Of course, we've yet to even deal with big old boards who are going to make this board of Jay Legolas absolutely ridiculous.
That's right. Another oven coming down for Matty B, though, going to allow him to pad that life total even further. He's going to be gaining 2 every single turn. So now we have that tension of Jay Legolas building up a big board state to deal as much damage as possible from the enter the battlefield effect of that Enraged Forerunners versus pulling the trigger as soon as possible to deal the damage before Matty B gets his life total too inflated to be able to beat him through it. Keep in mind as well, if need be, he can sacrifice those cats and then sacrifice the food for even more life. So Matty B sitting on even an extra 6 life there if needed in a crisis. So Jay Legolas needs to pick his moment very carefully. Looks like he's going to just continue building up that board, gathering resources for now, saying, hey, if I just gain life, that buys me time to figure this out.
Yeah, that Hydroid Crisis number 2, as you said, going to allow even more draw. I mean, at this point, it doesn't even really feel like too much more is needed because, as we can see, there's another Hydroid Crisis in hand already for Jay Legolas. They're going to be pumping out extra life again and again and again. Matty B, they've got those ovens, they've got those cats, but I think this cat may have had its day.
That's right. Of course, the cat's excellent for stalling out the game against big ground creatures like the Cavalier of Thorns, but the Hydroid Crisis with the flying and the menace just sails through and deals the 6 damage every single turn for the rest of the game if Matty B is unable to find a way to deal with them directly. So again, Matty B looking to close the game out quickly with burning his opponent out with those cats, but that life gain from the Crisis making that very difficult indeed. And of course, the 2 geese able to generate food every turn, they're potentially representing 6 life per turn for Jay Legolas.
Yeah, that's craziness. If anything, it feels like the goose might be the real thing that puts an end to this ultimately. Cauldron Familiar being thought about, being brought into play. As we know, that's still going to keep propping up Matty B's life total as it wends its way towards 30, but definitely not the life total that Jay Legolas is worried about most in the immediate. Trying to break up to double figures.
Definitely can't count Matty B out, though. He's got that life total that's going to buy him a few more turns to find his answers. That priest enables him to make some incredibly explosive plays. And of course, he does have 2 cats here. So if he chooses at some point, he may actually try sacrificing both of them to go off and find more resources. That might enable him to then generate more food and get them back. So there are some very strong, powerful plays he can make here to try and get that burst damage to take Jay Legolas out in 1 turn.
Looks like Matty B may have had a little bit too much seasoning on the food which came out of the Witch's Oven as they draw themselves under the swamp, hovering the nice emote, but deciding to keep their potentially one of their last cards a secret for now. But we know they've been plagued by top decks of lands for a while. It doesn't seem that's going to change anytime soon.
Unfortunately not. The more aggressive decks like Rakdos Sacrifice not able to make use of excessive lands in the same way that the Simic Ramp deck is. You mentioned previously the Castle Vantris on Jay Legolas' side of the battlefield, able to keep generating value for you even when you draw land. We're seeing that huge play of Finale of Devastation coming down now. I believe, yes, in fact, paying the full 12 mana.
Ooh.
So we're going to see that second effect of creatures you control gain X plus X and haste until end of turn. So all of these creatures pretty dangerous threats right now.
That is ridiculous. It does not matter how many times you bounce your cat in and out of play. I'm trying to even figure out how much damage that is. It's a lot. I think we
Many. Midge.
That is a big old RIP Perinos. I think it may even get down to -50 or even beyond that. The last cats, the last act of defiance from Matty B says, you might have 15, 16 creatures. You might have 16, 16 flying Hydride Craces, but I've got a little cat, so who's really the winner here?
That's right. Matty B scratching and clawing on the way down. Unfortunately, doesn't look like it's going to be enough. Jay Legolas's army dealing so much damage. Matty B is all the way down to minus 53 to end out our final game in our final round of the autumn Swiss portion of our event.
Oh, wow, what a way to end. What a fantastic game these guys gave us in game number 3. And that's just a taste of what you'll be getting next season in the spring season starting up in February, Wednesday the 12th. That's featuring only our top 32 teams. So we're going to have extremely high quality Magic for you guys then. And as we touched on during the last game, it will be under the, with a new format as well. So there's a tremendous amount to look forward to.
That's absolutely right. We're just getting started. Coming back this February, we're going to have some very exciting Magic with the new Theros Beyond Death set and some very revitalized teams battling it out to try and get the share of that £40,000 prize pool.
So as just to touch on that previous match, now we've come to the end of the season. As far as we're concerned, we've come to the end of a format. The big question was on everyone's lips was, was the Ragdoll sacrifice, throwing cats at people, was that a superior strategy? Apparently, making a big, stinking, huge board is a pretty decent way to deal with it.
I mean, any world where playing an N-Race Forerunners to win the game is a good thing to do, is, I think, a good place to be playing Magic. Definitely, there was a lot of conversation about the Cauldron Familiar Witch's Oven interaction. Was it too good? I think we've seen that it absolutely can be beaten. It is true that you need to be aware of it and have answers to artifacts in your deck, otherwise you can lose to it. But I don't think it's a dominant strategy. I think it's just one of a wide range of very powerful decks that are all equally viable or very close to it in this format. So it's been great fun exploring Throne of Eldraine with our players and seeing the brews they can come up with. Definitely very excited about this over-the-top deck that's looking to cast 12 mana sorceries to finish out the game. Pretty bombastic plays to be made there.
All right, guys, but we're super, super gutted. Unfortunately, this is going to be the last one of the winter season. Our games this evening, and of course, across the whole season, brought to you the Republic of Gamers and Intel alongside Twitch Student as well. If you'd like to try and meet some of the other NUEL's Magic fans, you can head across to the NUEL's Discord. That's discord.gg/the NUEL. You've got Magic fans aplenty there. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We will be going on a 10-week break, as we said, coming back in February for the spring season with our top 32 teams in a double elimination playoff competition. It's going to be crazy good. As mentioned, Theros Beyond Death will be part of the competition there. But for now, thank you guys so much for spending your time with us, and we'll see you again next season.
I've been there all night. I've been there all day. And boy, got me walking side to side. I've been there all night. I've been there all day. And boy, got me walking side to side. Got me walking side to side. Got me walking side to side. 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 I've been there all day. And boy, got me walking side to side. I've been there all night. I've been there all day. And boy, got me walking side to side. These friends keep talking way too much. Say I should give you up. Can't hear them all 'cause I've been there all night. I've been there all day. And boy, got me walking side to side. I've been there all night. I've been there all day. And boy, got me walking side to side. close enough till we cross the line. Yeah. So name a game to play and I'll roll the dice. Oh, baby, look what you started. The temperature's rising and here is this gonna happen. Been waiting and waiting for you to make a move. Before I make a move. So baby, come light me up, and baby, I'll let you on it. A little bit dangerous, but baby, that's how I want it. A little less conversation and a little more touch my body. 'Cause I'm so into you, into you, into you. Got everyone watching us, so baby, let's keep it secret. A little bit scandalous, but baby, don't let them see it. A little less conversation and a little more touch my body. 'Cause I'm so into you, into you, into you. This could take some time. Made too many mistakes. Better get this right. Oh, baby, look what you started. The temperature's rising and here is this gonna happen. Been waiting and waiting for you to make a move. Before I make a move. So baby, come light me up, and baby, I'll let you on it. A little bit dangerous, but baby, that's how I want it. A little less conversation and a little more touch my body. 'Cause I'm so into you, into you, into you. Tell me what you came in for, 'cause I can't wait no more. I'm on the edge of no control.